Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Steve Preda. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with.
I am Roy Miller. I'm that guy from Dallas, Texas, and we'd like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we have Steve Preda, and he is a business coach, and he builds viable businesses. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Great to be here on the show. I don't build the viable businesses. I help entrepreneurs do it. So I just want to make sure that they don't misunderstand it, and I don't have to run 20 companies at the same time. That would be a bit challenging.
That's correct.
So I guess that's your book in the background there, Steve.
Indeed.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? How you came about writing your book?
Yes. So this book contains the last 20 years of my life. And as an entrepreneur myself, as an investment banker and mergers and acquisition advisor and a business coach. And I wrote this book because I personally ended up in a situation where I advised all my clients not to get to, whereas I wanted to sell my business and it was not viable. And that essentially, that was the wake-up call that I want to help other people avoid my fate and not get into this situation. And that's why I wrote Buyable. And specifically, what happened to me was 9 years ago, in 2011, you might remember there was a big currency crisis in Europe called the Eurozone currency crisis. And my business was in its ninth year at the time. And we had previously went through another crisis, which was the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. And when this Eurozone crisis broke out, we were on vacation with my wife and our children, and we were looking at the news and watching what was happening. Countries was on the brink of bankruptcy, like Greece, Portugal, and Ireland, and banks stopped lending, and the capital markets froze up. And my wife and I looked at each other, and we remembered that just 3 years earlier, we had a very similar situation with the Lehman-induced financial meltdown. And we were in a business where we were attracting foreign investors to come to Hungary and buy companies. And the 2008 financial crisis completely stopped us in our tracks, and we almost went out of business. We barely survived at the time, and we saw 2011, the writing was on the wall, a similar situation. So we looked at each other and we asked, are we going to wait for the third strike, or are we going to make a change? And by the end of the weekend, we decided that we were going to try to move to the United States. And as we were getting ready in early 2012, I got a phone call from a guy called Christian, and he was running a private equity fund. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, Steve, let's get together and let's talk about a possible partnership, because you have this mergers and acquisition company, and I have a private equity fund, and we could create a merchant banking operation, and we could expand in the region. Let's talk about it." And I told him that, look, this is really touching that you thought of me, and it's a big honor, but actually we committed to move to the United States, so I won't be able to be your partner in this venture. But tell you what, if you're interested in buying my company, why don't you give an offer? So I was very excited. He went away, he agreed to give an offer, and I was waiting for his email, for a week, and finally it hit my inbox, and I opened it up with anticipation. And then it hit me. The offer basically told me that, Steve, you don't have a viable business. We're not going to pay money for it, but we are happy to buy your fancy furniture and your computers. But the business, without you being the CEO, being the business getter, being the relationship person, being the marketing person, without you, the business is not really worth very much. And then I realized that this is what I've been teaching all my clients, and now the the emperor has no clothes here. So we moved over here, and I started commuting, and basically I realized that I had to empower my people. So I had a great team, I had great people working with me, but I didn't empower them. I was making all the decisions. I felt, I wanted to be that most important person in the room, who, that made me feel good, but it didn't help the business. So I started delegating, and my team stepped up. They were super excited. They started doing things. They started doing sales. They started doing marketing. They started running the business. And in 12 months, the whole business turned around, and I was no longer essential for the business, which means I was no longer a bottleneck to the growth of the business. And Christian came back. He gave me a call, and he said, "Hey, Steve, let's have another conversation. I see that your business is running. You're not here. Maybe we have a much better offer." And within 2 weeks, we shook hands on the deal, and I managed to sell my business. So that was my experience. And I thought by collecting all those experiences and creating a framework about creating a viable business, I can spare other entrepreneurs the disappointment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you were in a position that a lot of people are in. Their business is worth more to them than it is to someone else. And they don't realize it.
And it is actually the case, because when your business is a source of your status, it's a source of your personal purpose. When you are using your business as a tax shield, and so on, then your business is worth more to you because it works for you. But when you're no longer the picture and someone comes in and you don't apply your experience and your knowledge, then the business is worth a lot less. And that is the fallacy of many entrepreneurs. They're actually proud of being so important in the business. They are proud of making the decisions. They think that their presence makes the business more valuable, and it's the opposite is true. Their presence diminishes the value of the business.
Absolutely. I did that. I purchased a business in 2007. So a lot of what you're talking about, I can completely relate to. And then when the crash came, of course, it wasn't sellable. But, in a frenzy of trying to make things happen, I always tell people my biggest mistake was I tried to actually expand services rather than focus on what I already had. And that didn't help either. You don't put money out that's not coming in. So that was my fear.
That's always a temptation to keep expanding rather than focusing, because it's more exciting. Focusing on your core business that you already know, like the back of your hands, it's not very exciting for the entrepreneur, but it makes the business much more valuable. That's the shiny object syndrome is a big catch.
And it's the smarter thing to do when you're going through rough times. That's the important part too. It's like, expansion during rough times is not necessarily a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, focus on what's the best.
Steve, you said something a while ago about being the most important person in the room, and I was pretty fortunate. When I first started out, I had a guy tell me one time, because we went to a meeting and there was somebody there that was trying to impress everybody how smart they were and all this stuff. And I was like in my probably late 20s. And this guy pulled me aside and goes, "Look, I'm going to tell you something." He said, "Don't try to be the smartest person in the room. It does. You see what this? It did everything against what he was trying to do." He said, "So there's no shame in being the dumbest person in the room. Even if you're the smartest, just sit back, let it go. Because when you try to be the smartest person in the room, a lot of times you get shut down, and you find out you're not." So,
or maybe you're in the wrong room. You need to go to a room where you can learn from people because you're not the smartest.
So I was lucky that, the guy took me aside and told me that, I've always remembered that throughout my whole career when I'd go into a meeting, because sometimes I just sit there and wouldn't say anything because, unless I was asked a question.
Yeah, and Roy, you're absolutely right. And humility is a really important trait for a successful leader. And Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and some other seminal business books, he talks about the level 5 leader, the person who has also humility and is able to share the credit or allow other people to get the credit, because his goal is not, or her goal is not to be the celebrity in the company. His or her goal is to make the company really strong and to empower people and let them make the decision, let them take the credit, and make this company greater. And people that surround a leader, they all have drive, they all have ego, they all want some credit, and if they are denied that, then they won't be so motivated to work for the business.
The other thing too that you're alluding to as well is that a business is not just about what's in the business, whether it's bricks and mortar or whatever, it's also the assets or the people that are in that business as well. So
yeah, it's most part is about the people, especially companies that provide professional services. It's all about how do you attract great people who have a lot of experience and highly valued skills, and how do you entice them to have them work in your company. That's a huge skill. Yeah, I mean, there are companies where the people element is maybe less. When you manufacture widgets and you have robots, then obviously the people, but even there you need people who figure out what the new product is going to be and to figure out how to create strategic partnerships and so on. So the people element is very critical. We call it team health. You need a healthy team. You need to work on the cohesion of the team, because it's the hardest thing is you have a bunch of smart people, to get them to row in the same direction is really challenging, because they all have strong ideas. They can all argue their case. How do you get them be aligned? It's much easier to let them all focus on their own department and not be aligned at the top, but then the company is not gonna move forward.
Yeah, I was fortunate to work for a company that the owner, his philosophy was to hire the best people he could find and let them do what they do best. And so, and I remember when I'd worked with him before he went in business or something, but he said, look, I don't care what time you come in. I don't care what time you go home. All I care about is keeping my customers happy and making money. If you can do that sleeping in your bed, I'm okay with it. But he would let us do, he, like you say, I'll give you all the rope you need. So, and we were, although we all, like you said, we had our strengths and we all had our ideas and opinions, but the whole group of us worked as a team. And his company was extremely successful because of it.
And you're absolutely right, Roy. And the way to achieve this is to have a really strong purpose for your business, so that people understand exactly why the business exists. So what your purpose, what your vision is. And then you don't have to micromanage people, because they are working alongside you to make this vision a reality and to fulfill the purpose of the business. And that really allows the company to grow. I read an interview recently with Jeff Bezos, and he said that not just him, but his whole leadership team is working on project 3 years into the future. So they are not even concerned with the present time. It's all done at lower level in the company. They are just building what's going to be happening 3 years out. They're working on the vision, basically, full time, and everything else is delegated. And the other, the execution is way below the leadership level. Yeah. So that's what you need to aspire to. It's not going to happen with a 10, 50, 100, even 500-person company, but with an Amazon, they can do that. I'm sure.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, because you got to be moving forward, or you're out of business.
Yeah, and the startups are coming, and they are trying to disrupt you every time. So you better be on your game.
So in you helping people to build the viable businesses, I would take it, I mean, obviously there's different stages of a business, your first 3 years, and then at the 10th year, and then at the, point where I guess at some point you want it to be buyable. versus viable in order to transition into your next stage of life. So do you process, you help all of your clients through those processes and all levels?
So building a viable business doesn't mean that you have to sell the business. And that's why the book is not called sellable, it's called buyable. Because the idea is that when you have a viable business, then you have options. If you fall sick or you go through a divorce or you feel burnt out, then you have options. You can transition the business to your management team, you can sell it to a buyer, you can move back to the board and not take part of the execution, day-to-day business. You can work as little and as much in the company as you like. It's an autonomous entity and it has its own life, and it's moving forward and it's profitable and growing. That is the idea. It's not that you have to sell no one has to sell a business. In fact, if you have a viable business, you have a business that is self-managing, it's growing, it's profitable, don't sell it unless you have something better to do, because such a business can be a lot of fun. It's a lot of, it's exciting, it's stimulating. You're surrounded by people who live your values, who share your values. It can be an extremely rewarding and stimulating experience. And you don't have to sell a company like that. Now, the buyability process that I described in the book, it's all about self-actualization. It's all about, if you're an entrepreneur, you may be running a business. Is this really what you want to do? Is this the kind of business you want to run? So it's about really having some soul searching, doing some soul searching and figuring out, what would I be doing with my waking hours if money was no object? If I could live anywhere, I could do anything. What is it that I'm genetically encoded to do that would really make me feel self-actualizing and having a rewarding experience? And figure that out first, and then work backwards. So reverse engineer from that point. And for most people, it is either retirement or having that self-managing company, or it could be some philanthropic endeavor, or it could be some hobbies, or it could be spending time with the grandchildren, the family. So figure that out, and then determine what it's going to take you financially to be able to do that. And that's what I call the magic number. And I actually have a digital tool, magicnumbercalculator.com. Anyone can go there without buying the book, and they can calculate what their magic number is. And when you have your magic number, then you can figure out what would it take for the business to be able to yield this magic number to you. So if you own 51% of this company, and there are certain taxes and whatever taxes and so on, is that you have to pay when you start this company. What is it going to take you? How big this company has to be in terms of valuation to get to that number? And I have another tool that helps you value your business now and value it into the future. It's called valueandgrowthcalculator.com. So people can check that out. And it will give you the growth that you will need to generate over your time horizon. So you will know exactly your job that you have to do. And when you know what you're trying to create, then you need to orchestrate your business. That's the next step, which means you implement all those management concepts. There are 7 management concepts that I talk about that all the Fortune companies have already implemented, that a small business can also implement using a management blueprint, which is kind of a cookie cutter approach to implementing those management concepts. So it will take you a couple of years to do that. So you implement these management concepts and you look at your company. If it's already at the value which you need, then you can decide what to do, whether to harvest it or not. If it's not there yet, then you can work on your value drivers. So how can you increase the value? And there are many ways. I write in the book about increasing the value of business. And then you fine tune. If you want to do a transaction, you fine tune the business. And then you can harvest the business various ways. It could be a minority investor. It could be an ESOP, an employee stock option program. It could be a sale. it could be a recapitalization with a bank or a private equity group. So there's many ways to skin a business, skin a cat. And then you have to make a decision what to do. So how do you transition? Do you want to stay in the business? What is the role that you want to play in that business? Do you want to run it? Do you want to be a passive shareholder? Do you want to work in the business? I had a client who built a big law firm, and he decided that he didn't like that management stuff, and he delegated the CEO-ship, the chairmanship, and he went back into the business and carried on working on transactions with the type of client he loved. That's what he loved to do. So you decide what you want to do, and then you can transition to that life, and that's what this whole program is about.
So just as an example, so I come to you, I say, hey, look, Steve, I have this company and I want to retire in 20 years
Mm-hmm.
on X, X whatever. So what's your process for that?
The process for transitioning the person, or to help him get to a point when he can realize what he wants to get?
Yeah, to help him be able to retire in 20 years.
So, okay, so let's see a specific example. Let's say I have a company with 5 million revenue, 1 million profit, right? And I own 60% of the company. I'm the manager, the managing director, president, and I want to retire in 20 years. And I figure out that in order to retire, I will need to have a nest egg where I can spend $250,000 a year on all my living expenses, my traveling with my spouse, and I will also maybe want to buy the second home, which will cost $1 million. I will want to donate money to my grandchildren's college fund. I want to do philanthropy. I want to buy cars, whatever I want to do. So let's say 250,000, and you want to spend $2 or $3 million. Maybe you need a nest egg of a $10 million nest egg at that point. The company is now with 1 million profit, probably maybe worth $4 to $5 million. And in order to get that 10 million, you have to have a company which is worth $20 million, $80 million. So you have to grow your company from a 1 million profit to 4 million profit, let's say, which means that you have to quadruple the value over 20 years, right? So that's actually not a very high growth. That would probably, you can do this with less than 10% growth a year cumulatively to get there. So you probably can get there actually in 10 years rather than 20 years. But let's say you love this company and you take your time. So you want to grow 10% a year. If you orchestrate your business, you can easily grow much more than 10%. You just implement the 7 management concepts I mentioned. You can easily get from, depending on the industry, you can get to 10, 20, 30% growth a year. And if you really want to take it easy, you keep it 10, 15%, and you're going to get there. I think you can set more aggressive goals. You can, my clients grew on average last year, which was pandemic year, 16%. In 2019, 22% top line. It's achievable, and then you do all the other things when it's time. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of blew me away when you said you could probably do it in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, private equity groups, they typically, when they buy a business, their goal is that they want to triple the value in 3 to 5 years. And they can do it. I mean, we can get really technical here, but they can do it by implementing some concepts that they bring in a consultant, McKinsey, and they will figure out how to improve the operational performance of the business. They will start to sell more aggressively to other markets. They are going to increase the profit. They're going to pay off debt. It's very easy to triple a company which is not optimized within 5 years on the top line, and you can do that too. You don't need to bring in an expensive consultant or a private equity group, you can just use one of the cookie cutter approaches, and you can do 80% of those things yourself.
Wow. That's surprising. You know, I had no idea.
Things that we could have known 20 years ago, right, Roy?
Really, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, yeah.
So let me give you just a 3-minute what these management concepts are, because that's going to make it very clear to you.
Okay.
So there are 7 management concepts. These have been discovered over the last 100 years. The first one was in 1911, the publication of the Principles of Scientific Management by Frederick Winslow Taylor, which was all about processes, systemizing a business. And the 7 concepts are culture, so figuring out the right culture for your business, the right people for the business, what does it look like? The second is structure, so what should your organization look like? What are the major functions and the major roles for each function and sub-functions? So that's your foundation. Then you go to your direction. The direction includes the vision, which is where you're going, and then the strategy, how you're going to get there. And then you go into the, I call it production, the execution. So you need to have goals. You have to set regular goals. You have to create scoreboards that you measure your performance on a weekly basis, how you're progressing on those goals. The second piece there is processes. So you have to document the processes of your business so you can delegate to people who have less experience and less intuition than you do. And finally, the alignment that we spoke about. How do you make sure everyone is rowing the same direction in the company? And if you do that, you can easily double or triple the value of your business. And it's not rocket science, and it's a linear process. I'm being serious.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you make it sound just so easy and simple. I mean, you know, and
it's simple,
it
but
makes
it's not easy.
perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
It's simple, but it's not easy, because it requires discipline, determination, and you have to follow the process. And sometimes you need help. That's how we make our living, business coaches, because we help people follow that process. First of all, we bring them the process, what they really need, their company needs, and then we give them with the pace at which they can absorb it. Because today, our biggest challenge is not lack of information, it's too much information.
Yeah.
We are overwhelmed with information. So you need to filter the information, filter out the noise, and to really be able to focus on the essential thing that you need at that time for your business. So that's what a good coach gives you. And then they hold you accountable. They come and say, okay, did you do what you agreed to do? And they create a structure where you can hold each other accountable every week and every day by having a process of communication that will facilitate that.
Great. Well, Steve, how can our listeners reach out to you?
So if you'd like to reach out to me, just Google my LinkedIn page, Steve Preda. And if you would like to learn about Buyable, it's available on Amazon. So just Google Steve Preda Buyable. It will pop up for you. If you're not ready to make the investment and buy the book, then you can go on buyablebusiness.com and you can download the first 40 pages of the book, including the introduction, the first chapter, the preface, introduction, first chapter, and you get the big picture overview of what it's about. And if you would like to figure out whether your business is buyable and how you're stacking up on the 6 factors of buyability, then go to buyabilityassessment.com and answer 41 questions there, and it will spit out a complete report on the 6 factors of buyability and where you need to work on. And it will also give you recommendations as to what should be your first step to move to a better place.
Wow. Wow. That's great.
I love the tools that you're offering people. That's very interesting. From the value of growth and the number calculator, I got all those. I'm looking forward to visiting them.
Yeah, no kidding.
Absolutely. Please check it out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all this information.
Yeah, it was great, Steve. I mean,
Thank you for the opportunity. This is a great podcast. I love it that you're in doing a tandem job here, and you're kind of using the brainstorming principle, mastermind principle, and none of us is as smart as all of us, right? So it's a great one. So thanks for having me here.
oh man, you are so welcome, and I mean, I learned a lot. That was a fast 30 minutes with a lot of information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I hope I didn't overwhelm you guys.
No, it was great. I mean, it's very insightful. Thank you.
I think
Thank
if we continued, I might be overwhelmed.
Yeah, let's stop here. Let's stop at the top.
All right, perfect. Thanks
Okay,
again.
Steve.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very
guys.
much.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.